Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. On Fridays, we talk about the product owner role in Scrum. We talk about patterns and anti-patterns that relate to ours and the team's collaboration with the product owner. And we've also put together a course to help you navigate that relationship. There's 18 modules, nearly 8 hours of tools, techniques, videos, handouts, presentations you can use to help you and your team work better with your product owner. The course is available at bit.ly/coachyourPO. All lowercase, all one word. That's bit.ly/coachyourPO. And now, on to the show, the Product Owner Show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Friday TGIF and Product Owner episode this week with Jan Neudecker. Hi, Jan. Welcome back.
Hi, Vasco. I'm kind of a bit sad to come back for the last time. It's been great so far. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. But let's make this go out with a bang, as it were, and have great content here for our listeners. We're talking product owner, and of course, as we were prepping for this episode, I said, Ian, let's make a little bit of fun of product owners. So obviously, for those of you listening, we're not making fun of the people who do the product owner role. We're making fun of the caricature of what product owners sometimes do. So don't take it personally. It's not about criticizing people. It's about, in a playful way, talking about what sometimes happens that is really wrong with product owner role. And sometimes it happens by accident, and sometimes it happens because that's what people are pushed to do, despite them not wanting to do it. But I don't know what Jan is going to share. So let me ask the question.
Yeah.
Give me a good example of a bad product owner. What were the patterns or the pattern that you've seen in real life? But of course, now we are caricaturizing it, that exemplifies how product owners sometimes can destroy a lot of value.
They can destroy a lot of value by not wanting to collaborate with a team and seeing themselves as an outside entity. I had that once in a distributed setup, and that product owner, he didn't mean any harm, but he just was like under the impression, I write down once what needs to be done, put that into a ticketing tool from a company named Atlassian, and then someone else will take care of it, but you don't, or you're not supposed to change any of the content. So do this as I say, so to say. Yeah, that led to situations where the team sometimes, first of all, did not understand what's actually the point. What are we doing here? Or this is not really possible, or this is going to be really expensive if we do it that way. And there was no discussion happening. So that's an anti-pattern you might come past in your career as a Scrum Master, which I would always take very, very serious because it's not a healthy one. Try to have your Scrum Masters close to you.
I mean, the obvious thing here is that the team ends up delivering something which is completely wrong because they either misunderstood what the PO wrote down, or they understood exactly what the PO wrote down, but they couldn't give any feedback because that feedback wasn't welcome.
Yeah.
So let's give our friends here listening some advice. Like, how do we get out of this conundrum?
What I would advise to do in this case is point out to the product owner the opportunity he's missing, because I always respect them as smart people who are experts in the field of their product. That's why they have the job of a product owner. But they're like more of the issue or challenge owners or experts. Like, they understand what the user wants to achieve, what his day-to-day issues are. But on the other hand, you have the developers who know how to make that happen, how to achieve that value technically, how to implement that if we're talking software, how to create an actual product. And that's usually my approach by talking with a product owner about, okay, you might have a solution in mind. You have a full team, which is equipped with all capabilities to build the product sitting on the other end. Maybe they have different solutions which can achieve even more value. Tap into their brains too, enable their creativity, get them involved. And that's a discussion I think is very, very valuable to have, to make them understand I can really tap into other people's minds as well. And maybe I don't need to be the one formulating all the requirements. Because at that point of time, that person was really writing down every requirement and he thought no one else is allowed to touch it. Actually, I'm totally fine if a product owner never ever writes one single product backlog item himself. If he's able to transport to the team what the issues and challenges of the users are, and then the team creates their own product backlog items to make this value come alive, that's totally fine. And I've worked with such kind of teams. That's amazing. If you drop them an issue and they come with a solution which enables a lot of value to be used. So make that clear to your product owners if they guard their product backlog a bit too much, as this is something only to be touched by me.
Yeah, that there's one way that so thinking about how to help the PO understand the value they can get from collaborating with the team. Another aspect is that the team can bring in solutions that the PO can't think of, because the team is knee deep in the technology aspects, right? They may not understand the customer or the problems that the customer needs solved, but they definitely understand how to solve them.
Yeah.
And they understand them from a perspective of deep technological knowledge, which the PO may have in some cases, but very often doesn't have, because they're not coding anymore, right? They're not testing anymore. And that's an important piece of value that the team can bring in that collaboration.
And I've seen that a few times, that once the developers have understood what actually is the day-to-day issue or the benefits that people want to achieve with that new functionality, that they came up with, this is what you actually want. So yeah, we would do that in a different way. Plus, if we already use this data, would it also help you to see this data, or to have this data somehow being processed and with that result? There were some new functionalities which delivered even more value emerged from the team understanding what the actual issue is. And the product owner would never have come up with that kind of functionality, because he was, and that's not a bad thing. I'm an advocate of saying a product owner does not need to know technically how his product is built. He needs to know how it functions and what benefit it delivers, because I've seen it far too often that product owners who have developed before think in solutions already too early, which will always limit the developers from being creative. And then you basically limit the quality of a product to the knowledge of one person instead of an entire team.
Exactly, right? Like 1 + 1 is not 2. It's much more than that once you start collaborating. Great story, definitely. Jan, let's talk about the opposite, the mirror image of this. What might have been possibly the best product owner you've ever worked with? Describe them for us.
I have one collaboration in mind where the person had no experience in being a product owner before and really blew me away. What stood out was that he had a standing already and he had a very, very senior position in the company. So from the moment on where I knew he's going to be the PO, I had a very high hope in this might finally be a product owner who will take decisions and own them. And that was very impressive. And I could really teach him what he needed to learn. That was fine. And he soaked it up like a sponge. And what I saw with him, what I did not see in that quality before and even after, is this collaboration we just described. So he really understood quickly that the team will decide on how to solve an issue. He just needs to prioritize those kind of issues and transport them to the team. And whenever he was presented with options, and you will always have that usually, that a team can tackle a challenge in different options, which sometimes can also translate to we have a very expensive option, we have a cheap option, and you have a medium options, and each has its benefits and its negative sides. Please make a decision. What I've seen in the past is someone takes a decision, is not happy with the result, and blames the team instead of owning that decision as a product owner. You own that decision. And that was like the most important factor where I say this product owner really stands out in my past history of collaborations with product owners. Not only because he understood I can really harness all the creativity from the team, but he would on the spot take a decision. If the team said A, B, or C, he would not go back. He would not need to go back to anyone else in the company to ask for permission. that was a very great trait, which this should be common sense that product owners should act like that, but I rarely see that. He could.
That's why it's called an owner, right?
Yeah. And when the result was not what we would have liked to have, but we didn't know that up front, he also stood up and owned that decision. So he would never blame the team for anything he had decided and take the easy way out, which would also have him lose all the trust from the team. So that was really, really very impressive by those two traits. Letting the team be creative and owning the decisions and really being able and having the mandate to take them on the spot.
Yeah, the mandate is a very important aspect of the PO role, right? Like as I commented a second ago, that's why it's called a product owner, right? That was the whole idea. In the original Scrum, they also called it, although from what I understand, not anymore, but they call it the single ringable neck, right? It was the person who owned the decisions. And this is incredibly important because it gives the team the certainty that they are moving in the right direction, right? Like they don't need to expect or even fear second guessing of the product owner. Or sometimes a worse pattern, which is the product owner is just a megaphone, right? Like they get asked something and then they repeat that to the team without understanding of why that something is important, right? Like that's a very important aspect, this aspect of ownership. I think it's great that you highlighted it. Thank you very much for that, Jan.
Yeah, I think this aspect of, and they changed that in the last Scrum Guide, where the development team is not called development team anymore, and you only have one team in the Scrum Guide, which really highlights the PO is your ally. You're in the same boat.
Part of the team. Indeed.
Exactly. And that reminds me of a situation where we had two companies, like one company which had the product owner and was giving the money, and the other company was building the product. And we started having the first retrospectives with that product owner. And the team members were looking at me like, okay, we always did this internally without the client involved. Can we be open here? And I looked at the product owner and I was like, we're going to be open. And after that retrospective, she even said, I heard stuff here which actually, as a paying client, I don't want to hear, and I should be really pissed about it. But on the other hand, I'm really happy that you told me that, because now I understand what is actually going on and I can help you solve those issues. So as a product owner, be an ally of the team. That's the really important aspect to be successful.
The PO needs to be an ally to the team. I think that's a great way to end the product owner discussion. But of course, we're not over yet. We do want to know, Jan, where can people find you and find out more about the work that you're doing?
They can find me, easiest way would be LinkedIn. So we can probably link my profile on the show notes. I mentioned it early on that I'm active in the Scrum community. So I'm hosting a user group in Mannheim. Currently, we're remote due to the COVID situation. So that's a place where you can find me once a month as a host, sometimes also as a contributor, as a speaker. I'm doing that with two very good friends of mine and didn't do that for a very long time. That was the biggest mistake ever. So if you're listening to this and you're new in your Scrum Master journey, don't neglect the community. It's the most powerful source of growth that is at your fingertips for free all time. So LinkedIn or the community, that's where you will find me. And I hope to be in some conferences again this year. So if someone recognizes me from the podcast and you have any questions, I will be super excited if you just give me a high five and we talk about stuff.
Absolutely. And we'll put the link to the meetup and the LinkedIn profile for Jan in the show notes so that people can easily find. And why not ask questions, give feedback about his participation here on the podcast. Jan, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
Pleasure on my side as well. Thank you for doing this, Vasco. I think this is a great resource for Scrum Masters to grow. I was really happy to be your guest.
One more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast is over. But there's a lot more we have to share. We have developed our own membership site where you find a community of active and engaged Scrum Masters. In this site, you get access to exclusive content and get to interact with us, your podcast hosts, as well as the best Scrum Masters in the world. Join us at scrummastertoolbox.com/podcast and keep this podcast free of advertising. See you next week for one more week full of Scrum Master tips and tricks. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.